How do you see the Michigan-Penn State matchup going down this week, Joel?
I think it is a fabulous matchup. I think they're very evenly matched. I love the changes that Penn State has made since last year. You know, they struggled last year after starting. This is the second straight year we've seen them inside the top 10, 5-0, you know, to begin the year. And last year they just didn't have the staying power because they didn't have the depth at quarterback. They suffered some injuries on the defensive line. And honestly, you know, their offense never materialized because of their inability to run the ball. And they've corrected all of those issues. And this is a much better team than I saw in the middle of the year a year ago. They can run the ball really well, Rich, with two young freshman running backs. Nick Singleton was the number one running back in the country in last year's recruiting cycle. He signs with Penn State, and he's really transformed them and their offense. And what he's done is he's allowed a veteran quarterback in Sean Clifford to really be more of a game manager rather than having to be the catalyst as a playmaker in their offense. And he manages the game pre-snap now as good as anybody out there and gets them into the right play. And I think that's where he's best, and he's flourishing. On the other side, what I can't wait to see is the next gear from Michigan. And this is the problem doing three straight Michigan games. They haven't had to go to even really fourth gear, Rich. You know, even tied at 10 at half last week, it was such an emotional experience because of what was happening with their coach, Mike Hart, who is their running back coach. If you don't know, Mike Hart had a seizure last week on the sidelines in Indiana, and they had a hard time getting over that emotionally in the first half, and rightly so, by the way. But we haven't had to see them as a team really go into that even fourth gear or certainly even fifth gear. And what I can't wait to see is, does this team have that gear? Where are the wrinkles? Where are the little change-ups? And, you know, we think that J.J. McCarthy, their quarterback, can take them to the next level offensively because of his potential. We just haven't seen it yet. And I think that we'll have to see it this week if they want to win the game.
Why haven't we seen it yet, Joel? Why?
Well, I don't think that they've needed to. And, you know, I'm sure they're so – Rich, you know, we joke about like, oh, you know, I'm taking up residency. These coaches are like, get out of here, class. You know, because they keep getting asked by the media, the local media, about things that I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know, so and you know, of course, because I questioned the fact that they have two play callers. You know, and then last week I said, hey, you know, they've got some real tendencies on offense. But the part of that is that they haven't had to break them. They haven't needed to go there. And so why break them? Why put things on film that you can save for when you absolutely need them? I think that's a big reason. And then I think also the natural maturation of a young quarterback. J.J. McCarthy is really talented, and he is beginning to learn how to be a starting quarterback and not just a spot guy that goes in. You know, everyone tells me, like, well, he's experienced. He played last year. Yeah, but it's so different when you're the starter. The pressure, the yoke that you carry of the team is heavy. It's burdensome. And he is learning how to deal with that. More specifically, he's learning how to complete the ball down the field. He got a little better last week, but that's certainly going to have to increase if they want to take the next step, be explosive, be a creative and innovative offense, and still have the ability to beat you up in the inside running the football, which they've been able to do very well.
Well, you know the drill, Joel Klatt, certainly from the perspective that I have and the rest of the Michigan fan base is every time I watch them, I just look for team speed. I look for who could replace Hutchinson and Ajabo, and they do have some pass rushers who have shown some significant ability over the past several weeks, and Blake Corum looks fast, and the offensive line looks like they can protect, but everything is seen through the prism of whether they can go into the horseshoe in November and shock the world a second time. And I understand this is Penn State is very significant opponent, top 10 and all that, but what do you see? I mean, you mentioned Penn State is vastly improved from last year. Would you say the same thing about Michigan, Joel?
You know what's so interesting is that both of these teams, that's how their fan base views them. You know, it's like it's all well and good, all these other games,
Yep.
but it's like, but can you beat each other? And that's what's so great about the Big Ten East, because I think that that's the same with Penn State. And Rich, candidly, Michigan fans are also sick of me. Why? Because that's the lens with which I analyze them. So if I'm doing their game against Maryland, let's say, a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
and people are like, well, why are you so effusive of your praise for Maryland, and you have these small criticisms for Michigan? Well, it's because of the level of expectation I have, and we all have, of each program. Maryland is trying to answer some questions and get to a point where they are bowl eligible, 8 wins, 7, 8 wins. And so when they're making strides in those departments, I see it, and I'm going to say as such. When Michigan has small things that could prevent them from being Ohio State, that's what we're all going to latch onto, because that's the expectation. See, everything is in this sport is derived, and I'm talking about the college sport, is derived through the lens of expectation. And that's vastly different than in the NFL, when everybody has the same expectation. You either go to the playoffs or you don't in the NFL. It's a very different set of expectations for every program based on the vast array of programs and potentials of programs that we have in college football. Now, having said that, I do think Penn State is much better. I do think Michigan can be better, which is – it's hard to convince people of that because they lost Hutchinson and Ajabo. However, I thought that their offense last year was very good and very sound, but they didn't have the next gear to go and compete with a Georgia, compete with a playoff team. Now, they were able to beat up Ohio State, and more power to them. But what they've done over the last few years, and I think that you would agree with me on this, they have evolved. I think Jim Harbaugh has evolved. What you saw 5 years ago from Michigan was a very stubborn offense and a specific style of defense, which was going to lead you to 9 or 10 wins. But those schematics and styles were never going to be in the vein that would really threaten Ohio State. Now, they got close one year, and they had really good players, but you just got the sense. I was doing a game, what was that, 2018, Rich, in the shoe, when Michigan rolls in there favored. They've won 10 in a row and got absolutely run out of the building because they didn't have the speed necessary to cover Ohio State. They've changed the schematics. They've changed the style of player. This defense is much more suited to play at the top end of college football because of the athleticism and speed that they put on the field, in particular in the back two levels. They've got good edges, maybe not quite as good as they did last year, but Mike Morris, Yabi Oki, these two guys can rush the quarterback. They're very good. They're big in the middle with Mozzie Smith, over 300 pounds, Mason Graham, a freshman, over 300 pounds. They're athletic and versatile at linebacker with a guy like Junior Colson, who I think in 2 years we're going to be talking about, Rich, at the desk and God knows where, as a first-round draft pick potentially, as a linebacker. And then they got 3 safeties that are really versatile players and can tackle in space. So defensively, they're much better. And then offensively, they at least have the potential to be both explosive and powerful in the run game.